currently have my uh, Black Belt application for Lockpickers United um, in review. Um, and to get that far, I had to pick a couple Black Belt locks. Um, and before that, I did brown, red. Um, and having seen my videos, if you have, uh, with my numbness and tremors and whatnot, you might be asking how. Um, that's a very good question. I'm not entirely sure, uh, and especially considering I started picking on January 8th. Um, honestly expected to be at this for. I expected a year or two before I hit purple, if that. I wasn't even sure, you know, if I could reach it. Um, a lot of experienced pickers will tell you that it's important to visualize the internals of the lock, um, so you can understand kind of what you're doing. Um, Different people will have different abilities as far as visualization goes. Um, some people can visualize like watching a movie. Um, it's very vivid for them. Others can't visualize at all. It's called aphantasia. Um, my father is like this. Basically, doesn't really picture anything. Um, Reading fiction was never really an interest to him. Stories could be interesting, but um, it's basically words on a page. It's not like he's seeing what's going on or imagining it in that sense. Um, I have another friend who is very, he also doesn't really visualize much. He's very, not just auditory, but verbal. He thinks in words. Um, so, you say orange, and it's the word orange. O, and the spelling, ORANGE. Um, Whereas, might say to someone else, they might picture the orange. Um, I can visualize okay. Um, for me, it's more kinestheticize. I don't know if that's a word. Um, uh, I can imagine the physicalness much easier than the visualness. Um, so when you say orange, I can imagine the weight of it, the feel in my hand, the roundness, the texture of the skin, that slight, almost kind of rubber, but not, it doesn't really grip quite the same way. Um, and, the texture, the dimples on it, and um, that kind of thing. Um, that to me is much more vivid than the image. Uh, so it's not like I just have a photo of it in my head. Um, it's kind of more vague. Even like when I read stories and they talk about, you know, this person went through the door and, it's, it's kind of like I see them to some degree, but it's really rough. And it's more kind of, I have a sense of presence of where they are. Um, so there's something called proprioception. It's the ability to tell where parts of your body are um, without seeing them. So I can close my eyes, I can hold up my left finger, and I can point to it with my right finger, and pretty accurate. You know, it's not like I'm off like this, or because your muscles give feedback to your brain, and your brain can tell where everything is based on what the feedback from the muscles. Um, the neat thing is you can extend this. It happens with driving. So you extend your proprioception into the car. Um, you can. It's easier with uh, kind of parts you can kind of feel, um, but you still get a sense of where something like, you know, you can even glance, you know, if you're out of your peripheral, you know, your car getting close, you might get a sense of it's going to hit like your quarter panel, even if you don't see the corner of the car, um, you know, that kind of thing. But it's much more vivid for like the front wheels, because you can feel based on how the car rotates around you, where the contact patch for the tires are on the road through the steering wheel. Um, so when you turn, you rotate around a couple points, and you just sense where they are. That's how you can kind of drive around something. You, it's one thing to just avoid it by going to the side, but you can actually drive around it without once you no longer see it. Um, and this is also what happens with stop lines. I'm getting a little too much detail, but anyway. Uh, the tent is at intersections with the white line. You're supposed to stop before the white line and have your bumper behind it. But most people stop with the tires either on it or just behind it. Um, and then a lot of the car sticks out in front of it. I think they should actually move the lines back to account for this, but um, it's because that's where you feel, and you have to kind of mentally calculate how much further out your bumper is from that point that you feel. Um, so the same thing happens with like picks. You can just by how you move your fingers. Uh, so if you're feeling the bottom of a pin and then the end of the pick goes up, you can feel that through your fingers, and then kind of get a idea of the shape that you're running the pick along. Um, my hands are numb, so like sandpaper, I can't. You know, I can tell the difference between like 40 and 120, but anything above 120, I pretty much, you know, difference between 120 and 1200, I don't feel a difference. Um, but I can still sense the muscles, how they're moving. So if I was trying to understand the inside of a lock by feeling it directly with my fingers, with the texture on my fingertips, I would have a much more difficult time doing that. Um, Everything would be really vague. Whereas with the tip of a pick, I can kind of feel out the details, and based on the minute movements, um, I'm getting better sensory feedback through the muscles than I am through uh, the skin. So I think that combined with the kinesthetic imagining uh, helps me out quite a bit. Um, I can it's like I build a 3D model of it, kind of like in CAD software, but I'm not seeing the lines. I am sensing. I can map it in my head where things are. Um, so it, I have a pretty good sense of 3D space in that way. Um, I guess a good way to describe it, like if you sat down and closed your eyes, sat on the floor, and I gave you two bean bags, and I told you to throw one 3 feet away from you and another 6 feet away from you, you would probably get halfway accurate with that. Um, Whether or not you can see, visualize where that's going to go, or you're using some other way, it's just your muscles kind of, your brain is doing the calculation for you for how far that is. It's very similar to that, but fairly detailed for me. Um, so I think the combination of all that is why um, I can do as well as I can, even with the um, handicaps that I deal with as far as touch, the numbness and tremors and all that.